guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Selenia for those who do not know, and in today's video I wanted to do a video all about a day of my life as a NICU nurse. Now while I can't bring you along to the hospital with me, I wanted to at least go through pretty much my daily tasks when I do go to work. Obviously my job is going to be different every day that I go, different patients, different babies, different times. You may be on admissions, you may have a 2-baby assignment, a 3-baby assignment, intubated oscillator, all of the above. But I just kind of wanted to give you like a basis because I feel like a lot of people are interested with what we actually do, and it's hard to show you guys without violating anything, losing your job, none of that stuff. We don't want any of that stuff to be done. But I think I kind of figured out a way to be able to tell you guys what I actually do. So if you're interested to know what a NICU nurse does, keep watching this video. All right, so I actually have a piece of paper because I sat down and I was like, what do I do every day at work? So I can kind of like remember what to tell you guys. So if you see me looking down or looking at my paper, that's why. But day in the life of a NICU nurse, first things first, you wake up, you thank God for another day. You're like, thank you for me being here. And then you get out of bed and do whatever you do for your morning routine. I don't really shower before work. That's just something that I do. It helps me feel refreshed. I'm not a night before shower, but that's besides the point. I get dressed, I make sure I eat breakfast because breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Cliche as much as it is, but yeah, you need to make sure you're getting breakfast because who knows when you're gonna get a snack when you are a nurse, okay? Yeah, all these nurses watching, you don't even know when you're gonna get a snack. However, you make sure you eat breakfast, and I make sure I'm just getting ready for my day. I got my scrubs, I'm a FIG girl. I'm open to other brands too, but I'm a FIG girl, so I got my scrubs on with my matching socks, this, that, and the third, and I start making my way to work. So at my job, you clock into work, and you can only clock in like a certain amount of minutes before your actual shift because you just know how hospitals are. So you clock in and you make sure you put your bag away, you put your lunch away, you make sure you fill up your water bottle, and you make sure you have your pens ready. I make sure I have a lot of color-coded pens because that's just how I keep track of the patients that I'm taking care of that day. Then what we do next is we go into a huddle room that we have, and in there you get to see your assignment that you have for the day. You get to see if you're on admissions, if any patients are getting ready to be discharged, if there's any student nurses that are going to be with you, if you're, I don't know, going to a different unit or floating. That assignment book literally tells us all that we have to do. So then also during that huddle we get updates on the unit if we're out of any formula, if there's any type of clearances, just all of the updates of the unit. Then they talk about education reminders to make sure you're up to date with that because things change constantly in a hospital, girl, and you just gotta stay up to date. There's always going to be education modules no matter what, okay? Also, we learn the doc of the day so we know who we're gonna talk to, and then we know about discharges as I mentioned earlier. So once we're done with report, we usually say a joke at the end of our huddle to make the day a little bit better. And then we head on into our rooms. We have pod style rooms where I'm at. So you head into your pod, you go to the sink and you make sure you do your little hand scrub. You scrub all the way up to your elbows. You make sure you don't have any rings on, you don't have any watches on, none of that, because we're trying to just decrease the risk of infection to the little babies that we take care of. So you make sure you scrub, it's about 2 minutes, and then once that is done, you go to the person who has your patients that day, and that's when we do handoff report. So that's probably similar with anybody, but this time we're just literally by the patient's bedside because they don't move. So we receive reports, you log into the computer, you assign yourself to those babies that you're taking care of, and then you just start looking through the chart, looking through the active orders, all of that. That person will give you a full, thorough report. It just depends. Sometimes if you already had those babies before and you know all about the history, you don't need to go in that much of detail. But if they're brand new to you, then they can just give you the spill from A to Z, and whatever questions that they can't answer, you literally have the chart in front of you so you guys can look together. But this is the time when you ask questions, you know when parents are coming, you know if any procedures are coming up, anything like that is what you do during this time. So also during this time, you get to know care times, which are when the babies are due. So here in the NICU, what we have are care times, and some people also call them touch times, depending on where you work. But care times is when we do the whole shebang of actually working with the baby. So our first care time, we make sure we get a blood pressure, you take a listen, you do a full assessment, you change the pulse ox, you take a temperature, you check the oxygen status, you change the diaper, you do a feeding, you give medications, you literally do everything. So that is what you do on the first care time. And then also during those times, sometimes OT, PT, speech meets with those infants, especially on day shift. You day shift people know how it is. Everybody is probably going to see that baby during your shift, so you just have to work out times that actually work. But going back to it, for us, with our care times, you touch the baby or you help the baby and do all of your vital signs every 3 hours. So in a 12-hour shift, you'll have 4 for each baby. Unless they're not eating, then it'll be every 4 hours, unless they have 2-hour feeds. It just depends, but normally babies are every 3 hours. So an example would be, you would have the baby do it 7:30, 10:30, 1:30, and 4:30, or 8, 11, 2, and 5, or 8:30, 11:30, 2:30, 5:30, or the last one would be 9, 12, 3, and 5, or 6, 3 and 6. That's like, I feel like the most common one, so I don't know why I messed that one up. 9, 12, 3, and 6. But this just means that you can't have that many babies. At my hospital, you can only have up to 3 because I'm a level 3 NICU nurse, so it just depends on your assignment. It just depends on the extent that the baby needs and how much care it needs, but you'll have up to 3 babies, and that makes sense because there are 4 options for care times, and you can't take care of 2 babies at one time. Literally, you can't, because girl, that's all that you do. Like, that's literally all that you do. You do everything for them. So that's what care times are. We do them 4 times a shift. And these are really the times that we only touch the infant to try to decrease stimulation and to promote growth. So a lot of times when parents come in, if it's between care times, we try not to open up the isolate doors. We try not to wake them up, turn all the lights on, because this is their time to rest in between care times. And care times is when we can start getting them moving, all of that good stuff. So then what we do, once you figure out the care times and how everything's going to work, when parents are coming, if it's bath day, you figure out that. When parents are coming, if they're coming today or if they want to reschedule to tomorrow. This is just your time to chit chat and get to know everything about the patient that you're going to be taking care of for that day. Then what I start off next is I end up by cleaning the bedsides, because we have a cleaning audit at my job just to make sure everything's nice and clean to decrease infection. And then you also do your safety checks. So you check the alarms and the monitor to see their measures and to see what's like the high, what's the low, all of that good stuff. And then you also check the bag and mask. You want to make sure the bag and mask is working just in case, because neonates, sometimes they need the bag and mask. You want to make sure that it's up and it is working. And then also during that time, I like to also look through my active orders and make sure that what they told me and report is correct, because just because someone tells you something doesn't mean that it's right. So you want to protect yourself and you want to be able to know that that is the correct. So I look at the feeding order, I look at the oxygen order, I check if the babies are on oxygen, I look at that. If they have an IV, I check to see how that is, check to see the placement, all that good stuff. I consider all of those safety measures. Also talk about the active orders. So what you do first, I kind of mentioned earlier, is once all that's kind of done, it's probably time for a care time, because time at work just goes quick when you're busy. You're making appointments for when all of the therapies can meet with the infants, and you're just figuring out your day. So at the first care time, as I mentioned, you always get a blood pressure, because at my hospital, the protocol is every 6 hours, you need at least a blood pressure. So the first care time, you get one, you don't get one the second one, and you get one the third. So we call these full care times, when you get a blood pressure, do a full assessment, everything like that. Of course, in the middle, if there's an assessment that's much different, like let's say an infant scratches their face, you're still gonna chart it at the short care time, but for the most part, you do your full care time altogether. So blood pressure first, you change the pulse ox, and I always do the blood pressure first because usually the infant is sleeping. And that is probably the only way you are going to get a blood pressure, because they'll be in there like wailing, fighting, all of that good stuff. And you're not gonna get an accurate blood pressure if they're screaming their head off. So what you wanna do is you wanna get the blood pressure right away. Then I change the pulse ox, and I like to take a listen for a full minute, listen to the heart, listen to the respirations, listen to the bowel sounds, make sure everything sounds normal. You make sure you check for the cranial sutures and the fontanelles, make sure they're not bulging. You check to see like they're symmetric of their ears, their eyes, if they have any tearing, anything like that, anything that's out of the normal. Keep going down from there, and you just do a full assessment. You make sure their belly isn't extended, you make sure it's nice and soft. You make sure their legs, their musculoskeletal, literally a full assessment as I'm pretty much explaining. Then after I do that, I like to make sure I get a temperature, just because the baby, we don't want it to get too cold, and we want to make sure that they are getting a pretty accurate temperature. So once you get them moving, sometimes they get a little hot, all of that. Then we also do oral care to make sure we decrease the risk of any infection in their mouth or bacteria or thrush. So we do that. And then it's probably time to change the diaper by then, which we always say for the end because that is the dirtiest part. And who knows how many diapers you're gonna go through with babies, because sometimes it'll be 1, sometimes it'll be 5. They are the people who determine everything that happens for your day. So when you do that, you get ready to start the feeding, medications, and that would be pretty much it for the first care time. With us, we either feed by a bottle, you feed through an NG, which is going through your nose to your belly, or a tube with an OG, which is from your mouth to your belly, just depending on where the baby's at. They're either going to eat formula, donor milk, mom's milk. There's a whole bunch of different formulas out there, but that is what the baby will end up eating if they are eating. You give the meds like I mentioned earlier, and what we do is we do butt baths in the beginning just to prevent any type of diaper dermatitis, which is also known as diaper rash. We want to decrease the risk of that, and we do that during our first care time too. After that, I probably try to chart after my care time is done and the baby's doing fine, the baby finished eating or the pump feed's going. I like to chart because I like to do it right after each patient just so I don't forget anything. If possible, I like to do it right after. If not, it kind of gets put off and then you have 2 to 3 babies to chart for, and then it's time to do the whole thing all over again. So I just try to be as prepared and as organized as possible, if possible, but sometimes it does not work like that. And then also when parents decide to come in, you decide to educate them, help with discharge teaching, help them like learn their baby and they're touching their baby, because a lot of the times these parents feel a certain type of way, of course, because their baby's not with them. Their baby is here somewhere else and they can't be there 24/7. So you're just trying to be as open and giving them updates and letting them know and teaching them things, just because a lot of this stuff is new for parents having their baby in the NICU. Also, you can help them get in contact with social work in case they need any help. Maybe they need to talk to lactation services because they're pumping. There's just so many things that you can do while the parents are there. Have doctors come and update that in person instead of over the phone. When the parents come in, it's all what you make it, and try to make it the positive experience that you can. Also throughout the day, doctors come by the babies and they do their rounds and they let us know, what do you think? You kind of talk it through and you see if they're going to go up on any orders, if they're going to get rid of oxygen, add oxygen, all of that. There's a doctor there 24/7, but they come by the bedside at least once a shift just to actually assess the baby and figure out if their orders are correct. And pretty much you go through all of your other care times. We have four like I mentioned, and you have all these other babies. You gotta take your snack in between your lunch, help other people in your room. If it's bath day, it's a pretty busy day. And then pretty much you're down there at the end of your shift. And the end of your shift, you like to make sure that everything is all prepared for the next shift. And that would include making sure diapers are there, wipes are there, oral care swabs are there. If flushes, if they have an IV, you make sure you check your IV line, make sure it's in the right spots. Burp cloths, feeding supplies. Just make sure you stock the drawer and make sure everything is great for the next shift, because you want it great for you, if that makes sense. Also, before you leave, you want to make sure you fortify enough milk for the next feeding so the next nurse doesn't have to do it. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But all in all, that's how my day would go. It's definitely different if you guys watch in person, but we can't do that. So I decided to just do a sit-down video and talk about what I actually do. If you guys have any questions, make sure you guys let me know. Comment down below any questions you have. Like this video, subscribe, and if there's any NICU nurses out there, I hope that you guys do become NICU nurses, or if anyone aspires to be a NICU nurse, just take that leap, apply for that job, and become a NICU nurse if that's what you really, really want. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, beautiful.